So today let's talk about how to create a successful PowerPoint and use these 6 rules in order to make sure that you maximize what you're trying to say and meet all the requirements of rubric assignments for this class. In a PowerPoint, you want to plan ahead. You want to think about what's the message I'm trying to communicate, what are the rubric requirements for this presentation, and what do you want your audience to remember? What do you want this to stand out for them? And so you want to think of what your last statement you're going to make is, what your last visual will be, and work from there, work backwards. Make sure you stay focused in your message and that everything in your presentation leads back to that information. Next, you want to only show a few visuals per minute. You don't want it to be busy, keep it clean. Pictures can enhance and connect information, but if the picture doesn't make any sense with what you're saying, your listener will get lost and probably focus on the image more than what you're actually saying. You should not display slides for more than a minute, should keep it to less than that. And not all text on every slide needs graphics. And graphics can be pictures, graphs, GIFs, embedded videos. Just make sure it's relatable, that you connect the two. Don't use unnecessary words. You don't want full paragraphs or sentences. The tendency for that is to just turn and read off the screen. That happens a lot in class. You will lose points for that. So make sure that you use bullets or just a skeleton of what you're wanting to say that you can hang your hat on, and then turn, face your audience, know your content, and then present with confidence. Typography. Okay, so you want to make sure you use the correct size font and all of these different colors. You may think it's helping you to highlight what you're trying to say, but it actually makes it very hard to read, as you can see. So let's try this slide again. Much better. So I changed my title so it wasn't so long, and then I give you an example of the different types of fonts for different types of communication media. You should use the top row for digital presentations. And then you want to use the correct size. You don't want the size to be so small that the viewer can't see what you're trying to communicate, or so large that it's overwhelming. Typography matters. Okay, the 6x6 rule is that you want to limit your presentation 6 lines per slide, about 6 words per line. If you can use less, you should, but make sure that you're coherent, that you're communicating what you're trying to say without being too wordy. And also, again, if you just put paragraphs or sentences on there, you will have a tendency to read off your slide rather than turn and present to your audience. Our last tip is the rule of thirds. When you divide your slide, think of like a tic-tac-toe board, and you want to have images offset, and they attract the attention to the center of your slide. So if you have a lot of content in the center of your slide, images can help enhance what you're trying to say. So I have some examples we're going to look at now. These are previous student submissions, just to help give you an idea of what I'm looking for as you build presentations this semester. So this student was doing a presentation, one of the assignments you'll have this semester, on researching banking options for finance. And one thing they did was they copied and pasted straight sentences from the website. That's plagiarism. You will lose points for that. But also they copied and pasted full sentences and turned and read off the slide, and you can see that it continues throughout the presentation. There's also no images in this presentation, and so it wasn't as engaging to read. The next one may take a minute to load. It took a very long time to load in class, and made for awkward silences between each slide. But this student chose to use a GIF for every single slide, and you can see that as I go through here, what do you notice? Do you notice the content, or do you notice the GIF? This one's maybe more subtle, but there's a lot of good information he's giving, and he's pretty much following the 6x6 rule. But the GIFs really detract from the presentation. Okay, next one. The pictures in this presentation, this student, this was a final presentation on a budget right before semester break. So I guess you can tell what semester it was. It was in December. And so all of her images are, well, not all. That one's related to being a lawyer, but most of them are related to Christmas time. We have a Winnie the Pooh Santa, and this is a woman in a business suit, so that's more related. We have a Santa golfing, and the Grinch. So none of these pictures really had anything to do with career, budget, or finance. Okay, keep that in mind. These last two have some really good examples in here. So we have, this is the one time he broke one of my rules, which was he had different colors in here, but overall not visually unpleasing to see. But his pictures, his use, his 1/3 rule, his 6x6 rule, he really followed, and the images all match his content, what he's talking about. This one, do you see the dark on dark? That's kind of harder to read. So keep that in mind when you're building your presentations this semester. The last one, excellent example of building a presentation. Give it a second to load. Okay, so this is an example of 1/3. She had a lot of information but organized it very nicely. And she used the column format again. And then these images match the content of what she's talking about. And then she put in a graph to emphasize what she was speaking about previously, which was how much ATM access she would have depending on which bank she chose nationwide. And then again, her image matches what she's talking about. Really clean presentation and a good use of white space, which is not cluttering up your slide. So we will discuss any questions you may have. If you don't have any questions, go ahead and get started on your assignment up in Google Classroom. This will be an opportunity to practice making a presentation.